It was a warm evening in downtown Arlington, and the lively streets buzzed with conversation and movement. People weaved in and out of cafes and shops, the city's pulse vibrant and unrelenting. Elijah Grant, a highly decorated Navy SEAL on leave, walked at an easy pace along the sidewalk. He wore a simple gray t-shirt, well-fitted jeans, and sneakers. Nothing flashy, just comfortable. A leather messenger bag hung casually over his shoulder as he made his way toward a local bookstore, eager to finally pick up a novel he had been meaning to read for months. For the first time in a while, his mind felt at ease. But just as Elijah stepped into the crosswalk, the distinct sound of a police car pulling up shattered his brief moment of peace. Tires screeched softly as the vehicle came to a stop. Stepping out with deliberate slowness was Officer Cardon, a white cop with sharp blue eyes that locked onto Elijah like a hawk locking onto prey. "Hey, you!" Cardon barked, his voice slicing through the noise of the street. Elijah stopped mid-step, turning his head to meet the officer's gaze. "In a bit of a hurry, aren't you?" Cardon added, his tone thick with unnecessary suspicion. "Mind telling me where you're headed?" The question hung in the air, sharp, pointed, accusatory. A few passers-by slowed, sensing the tension, while others walked on, unfazed, as if this was just another routine encounter. Elijah tilted his head slightly, his expression unreadable. "Just going to the bookstore," he replied evenly. Cardon crossed his arms, a smirk curling at the edge of his lips. "Bookstore, huh? That bag of yours, what's inside?" "Carrying anything I should know about." The implication was clear. Elijah could feel the weight of the stares around him, could sense the bias laced within the officer's words. But rather than frustration or anger, something else flickered in his gaze. Quiet confidence. "You want to check?" Elijah asked, his voice calm, almost daring. Cardon straightened, clearly caught off guard by the response. "I'll be the one asking questions," he snapped. A beat of silence passed. The officer's hand hovered near his belt, while the crowd, now growing in size, lingered just a little longer. Phones discreetly slipped from pockets, cameras rolling. Elijah shifted his stance ever so slightly, still relaxed, still in control. And something about that composure made Cardon hesitate. "All right, officer," Elijah spoke again, his tone unwavering. "Let's do this the right way." A murmur rippled through the crowd, the tension crackling in the air like static. Cardon, visibly unsettled by Elijah's calm demeanor, squared his shoulders and took a step closer. His boots clinked against the pavement. "Drop the bag," he ordered, his voice harder now, as if raising it might somehow restore his authority. Elijah didn't move right away. His gaze remained steady, unreadable. Then, after a moment, he exhaled through his nose, nodding slightly. "Sure." Slowly, carefully, he slid the strap off his shoulder and held out the bag, not in submission but in strategy. The moment Cardon yanked it from his grasp, Elijah's eyes never left his. There was no fear, no hesitation, only a quiet power that rattled the officer more than he cared to admit. "Hands behind your back," Cardon barked, reaching for the cuffs on his belt. Elijah's brow lifted slightly. "Am I under arrest?" he asked, his voice firm, unwavering. "You're being detained," Cardon shot back, dodging the direct question. "You fit the description of someone we're looking for." The absurdity of the claim hung in the air like a bad joke. A few people in the crowd exchanged glances, some shaking their heads, while a woman holding her phone muttered, "Here we go again." Elijah gave a slow, measured nod. A faint, almost imperceptible smile touched his lips. "All right, Officer Cardon," he said, stepping just slightly forward, though his movements remained deliberate. "Let me help you out." Cardon stiffened instantly, his hand twitching toward his holstered weapon. "Stay right there." Elijah lifted his hands slightly, palms open. "Relax," he said, his voice smooth, controlled. "I'm just getting my ID." Moving with precision, he reached into his back pocket, pulled out a slim card holder, and slid out his military ID. Without a word, he held it out. For a brief moment, Cardon hesitated. His eyes flicked down to the card, scanning the name, the rank, the the words etched into its surface, United States Navy SEAL. You still think I fit the description? Elijah asked, his voice just as steady, but now tinged with quiet amusement. The crowd sensed the shift. They leaned in closer, phones raised openly now. The air was thick with anticipation. Cardon's jaw clenched. He flicked the ID back at Elijah. This doesn't mean you're above suspicion, he muttered. Stay put while I check your bag. Elijah folded his arms, an easy smile playing at his lips. He didn't respond, he didn't need to. The look in his eyes said enough. Go ahead. Dig yourself deeper. Cardon unzipped the bag, his fingers rifling through its contents as the crowd watched intently. A neatly folded book, a stainless steel water bottle, and a sleek black laptop sat inside, arranged with military precision. His fingers brushed against the book, pulling it out. What's this? He demanded, as if it were contraband. The title glared back at him, Leadership Under Pressure, A SEAL's Guide to Resilience and Excellence. The irony was completely lost on Cardon, but the murmuring crowd? They caught it instantly. Elijah's expression remained calm. That's a book I wrote, he said evenly, the faintest trace of amusement in his tone. Cardon blinked, momentarily thrown. You wrote this? He repeated, as if the concept were unfathomable. That's what I said. Elijah tilted his head slightly. Want me to sign it for you? Or are you just planning to keep digging through my things? A ripple of laughter spread through the crowd. Cardon's face reddened, jaw tightening. He shoved the book back into the bag with unnecessary force. Cut the attitude, he snapped, defensive now. This isn't over. Rifling through the bag, Cardon yanked out the laptop next, inspecting it as if he were certain he'd find something incriminating. When that search came up empty, he set it aside and moved on to the final item, a small, leather-bound journal. Flipping through its pages, his eyes narrowed, taking in the precise, meticulous handwriting. The entries detailed Elijah's experiences and reflections from deployments overseas. Then, a particular passage caught Cardon's attention. You don't fight for recognition. You fight because it's the right thing to do. Leadership isn't about power, it's about service. For a brief moment, he froze. The words struck something deep within him, though he wasn't ready to acknowledge it. Meanwhile, the crowd grew more restless, murmurs rising. Find anything illegal in there, officer? Elijah's voice cut through the tension, calm, polite, but carrying an unmistakable edge of challenge. Cardon snapped the journal shut, shoving it back into the bag, his frustration now written all over his face. You're free to go, he barked, stepping back as if regaining control of the situation. But Elijah didn't move. Instead, he folded his arms and raised an eyebrow. Not so fast, he said, his tone low but firm. You stopped me, accused me of fitting some vague description, went through my personal belongings in front of all these people. I think we're all owed an explanation. The crowd erupted in agreement, voices shouting, "What's the reason?" and "You can't just walk away from this." Phones were now raised, cameras rolling, their owners waiting for Cardon's next move. The officer shifted uncomfortably, his earlier bravado crumbling under the weight of the crowd's scrutiny. Elijah, however, stood tall, calm, unwavering, his presence alone making it impossible for Cardon to simply dismiss what had just happened. The silence between them stretched, thick with tension. Elijah locked eyes with him, his gaze steady. "You're not going to answer?" he asked, his voice effortlessly carrying over the murmuring crowd. What exactly was this description I supposedly fit? Cardon's lips parted as if to speak, but no words came. Because the truth was painfully obvious to everyone watching. There had never been a description, just an excuse. Elijah let the moment linger before continuing, his voice still controlled, but now carrying a sharpness that cut straight through the officer's flimsy authority. "Let me guess," he said, tilting his head slightly. "A black man. Walking down the street. Minding his own business. That about sums it up, doesn't it?"